Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that, well, we take these big, complex ideas, these mountains of information, and we try to boil them down into something really potent, really useful, and hopefully actionable for you.
That's the goal.
And today, we are tackling a really significant piece of work. It's an expansive deep dive into Brianna Wiest's book, The Mountain Is You, Transforming Self-Sabotage into Self-Mastery. Our mission really is to unpack this thing thoroughly, go through the core ideas, the insights, and give you some practical wisdom, for navigating your own inner landscape.
Absolutely. And this book, published by Thought Catalog Books back in 2020, it's really resonated. It's not just another self-help title. It feels more foundational, I think.
It does.
And Brianna Wiest herself, she's known for this blend of really deep wisdom, but also this incredible eloquence. Her writing just clicks with people.
It really does. And you see that reflected in the praise, right? It's not just us saying it's impactful. You've got Dr. Nicole LePera, the holistic psychologist, calling it a beautiful expression of healing. She points specifically to the insights on self-sabotage.
Right. And Simon Alexander Ong, the life coach, he talks about how it pushes you to focus on the person you need to become to scale your own mountains, which is a subtle shift.
It is. And then you have Young Pueblo, Don Zulueta.
Right.
Even Dr. Stephen Eisenberg calls it a masterpiece for stopping self-sabotage permanently.
Yeah, when you see that kind of range of endorsements from psychologists to actors to wellness experts, you know something's hitting a nerve, something transformative.
Definitely. So let's get to the core of it, the central metaphor. Wiest lays it out right there. The mountain that stands in front of you is the calling of your life, your purpose for being here, and your path finally made clear.
It's poetic, but then comes the twist.
The crucial twist, yeah. The line that anchors the whole book. It is not the mountain that you must master, but yourself.
Boom. That reframes everything, doesn't it? It shifts the focus entirely inward. She suggests that life, kind of like nature, often works for us, even when it feels like it's working against us.
She uses these great analogies like forest fires. They seem totally destructive.
Right. Terrifying.
But they're actually necessary for certain seeds to sprout, for new growth to happen, or like stars imploding before they become supernovas. Catastrophe, then creation.
Exactly. And she applies that same logic to our mind. She talks about positive disintegration.
Which sounds, frankly, a little alarming.
It does, but think of it like completely uninstalling an old buggy operating system before you can install the powerful new one. You have to clear out the old code, the old beliefs, the old self-concept.
And that clearing out process.
Yeah.
It's often messy, uncomfortable.
Very. It's a cleansing, a renewal. You shed the parts of you that aren't serving you anymore, even if you attach to them.
So those times when you feel like you're at the edge, like things are falling apart, we used to say those aren't roadblocks.
No, they're catalysts. Discomfort isn't failure. It's often a signal that you're right on the verge of a significant shift, a breakthrough. The breakdown precedes the breakthrough.
It really challenges that deep-seated instinct to just avoid pain at all costs.
Completely. It invites you to see discomfort as information, as part of a growth cycle. Think about it. Like you said, can you remember a time you felt things were unraveling, but looking back, it was a turning point?
Oh, absolutely. Those moments often feel agonizing because they're dismantling something old.
Right. It's not happening to you, it's happening for you, preparing you. It requires letting go of that victim stance.
Radical self-responsibility. That seems key.
It's woven throughout the whole book.
Okay, so that's the groundwork.
Yeah.
In this deep dive, we're going to walk through this chapter by chapter. We'll break down the concepts, use examples, look at how they connect, and give you those practical takeaways.
Yeah, consider this your guided tour up the mountain, the inner mountain.
Let's start the climb then. Chapter 1. The mountain is you unmasking self-sabotage. And she doesn't pull any punches, does she? Starts right out with, there's nothing holding you back in life more than yourself.
Oof. Yeah, that can be tough to hear. But she follows it up. If there's this persistent gap between where you are and where you want to be, and your own internal resistance keeps getting in the way, that's the signal. That's self-sabotage.
But she's very clear about what it isn't, right? It's
Yeah.
not masochism. It's not like you consciously hate yourself and want to fail.
Exactly. That's a common misconception she tackles head on. She defines it as the presence of an unconscious need that is being fulfilled by the self-sabotaging behavior. It's protective somehow. Misguided protection, maybe, but protection nonetheless.
Which means surface level fixes won't work. You can't just, try harder.
Right. That's the Band-Aid analogy she uses, ripping off the Band-Aid before you've figured out how to heal the wound underneath. It just leads to more pain and repeated patterns. You need that deep psychological excavation.
digging down to the roots. So where are these roots usually found?
Primarily in unconscious negative associations and these outdated inner narratives we carry around. Our self-concept, who we fundamentally believe we are, is built over years, right? Childhood, peers, experiences.
Our brains love consistency, even consistently wrong.
Precisely.
Okay.
Confirmation bias kicks in. The brain works overtime to prove our existing beliefs right, making it incredibly hard to just decide to change that core self-concept. It prefers familiar misery over unfamiliar territory.
And the example she gives about financial struggles really hits home for a lot of people, I think.
It's a powerful one. Someone keeps sabotaging their finances, getting raises then debt, saving then splurging. Wiest says, look at your earliest ideas about money. What did your family teach you, implicitly or explicitly, about wealth? About rich people versus poor people.
Right. If you grew up hearing money is the root of all evil, or seeing wealthy people portrayed as villains,
then subconsciously, you might resist becoming wealthy yourself. Because who wants to be evil or terrible? You sabotage your own efforts to stay aligned with that old belief, even if consciously you want financial freedom.
it's an internal conflict.
A deep one. And her counter perspective is so important. She basically says it's crucial for good people with good intentions to not be afraid of acquiring money. Because money is a tool. It creates time, opportunity, wellness. It can be used for immense good.
That reframes it completely,
Yeah.
from a moral failing to a practical tool.
Exactly. And this ties into another concept she introduces, borrowing from Gay Hendricks, the upper limit.
Ah, yes, the happiness threshold.
Right. We all seem to have this internal thermostat for how much happiness, success, or general goodness we can tolerate. It's our baseline.
So good things happen, a great relationship, a promotion, feeling healthy.
And if it pushes us beyond that familiar baseline, that upper limit, we subconsciously find ways to pull ourselves back down. We revert to what we know, even if what we know is kind of mediocre or even uncomfortable.
It's wild, isn't it? Because consciously, we think we want all the good stuff.
But the subconscious programming runs deep. It seeks familiarity above all else. As you're listening, think about it. Have you ever been on the verge of something really positive and then somehow messed it up or pulled back? That could be your upper limit kicking in.
And this leads to that tough realization. Real, lasting change often doesn't happen until staying the same becomes more uncomfortable than changing.
Yeah. We wait until the pain of stagnation is unbearable. We have to hit that point where the familiar discomfort is just too much. Not necessarily rock bottom, she says, but stuck between that rock and the hard climb out.
That's the leverage point.
That's the leverage point. And then she says something really striking. Let yourself be consumed with rage.
Which sounds aggressive, but she clarifies.
Right. It's not about lashing out. It's an internal rage, a fierce determination, a focused energy that says, absolutely not, I will not continue like this. It's the refusal to accept stagnation anymore, a kind of righteous anger fueling change.
Like channeling frustration into focused action. It makes sense, because avoiding this internal work, avoiding that discomfort, is partly driven by the fear of what change actually means.
Exactly. She points out that people resist healing because they know if they heal themselves, their lives will change, sometimes drastically.
And change is scary, even positive change. It means letting go of the familiar.
Letting go of an identity, maybe relationships, maybe a whole way of life that was built for the person you used to be, and that attachment to the old life, Wiest calls that the first and final act of self-sabotage.
Wow. Holding on to the old you is the ultimate block.
It requires a willingness to step into the unknown, into a new version of yourself, which is a perfect lead-in to Chapter 2.
Right, Chapter 2. There's no such thing as self-sabotage. Okay, wait. After everything we just said in Chapter 1, how does that title work?
Yeah, it seems contradictory at first glance, but it's a reframing. She argues that what we call self-sabotage isn't some unique dark force, it's just a habit. Like any other habit. Skills are habits that move us forward. Self-sabotage is a habit that holds us back. Both are learned, ingrained patterns.
So it's demystifying it, in a way.
Completely. The core idea in this chapter is that it's not about self-punishment. It's a way we try to protect ourselves. It happens when you have two conflicting desires, one conscious, like wanting that healthy relationship, and one unconscious, like fearing intimacy because of past hurt.
The unconscious need wins out, often disguised as protection.
Precisely. And she says those big, seemingly insurmountable issues are usually not huge problems, they're big attachments. Deeply ingrained ways of feeling safe or familiar, even if they're destructive.
Like the example she uses of repeatedly choosing partners who are unavailable or commit issues.
Exactly. Consciously, you want love. Unconsciously, maybe you're recreating a childhood dynamic where love felt conditional or unsafe. Or maybe you're trying to fix someone, unconsciously trying to master an old wound where you felt powerless. The pattern feels familiar, therefore safe to the subconscious.
Okay, so it's about understanding these underlying protective motives. Then she gets really practical, right? Laying out common ways this shows up.
Yes, this is where you can really start to see yourself, maybe.
Yeah.
She breaks down specific manifestations and offers paths to resolution.
Let's talk about some of those. You mentioned resistance, that feeling when things are going well and you suddenly stall.
Yeah, it's bizarre. You get the project moving, the relationship is healthy, and bam! Internal brakes slam on. It's the unfamiliarity of thriving instead of just surviving. Forcing yourself rarely works.
So what's the solution?
She says refocus. Get crystal clear on what you want and why. Identify the unconscious belief that's causing the friction. I don't deserve this. Good things don't last. Then wait for genuine inspiration or motivation to return before pushing forward again. Don't fight the resistance head on. Understand it. Then find the wanting again.
Okay. Then there's perfectionism. Oh, boy. This one feels like a virtue sometimes, doesn't it?
Totally. It masks itself as high standards, but Wiest calls it out as a major hindrance. It sets impossible expectations and becomes an excuse not to try. It's rooted in fear of failure, fear of vulnerability, fear of not being good enough.
You're so afraid of the imperfect first draft that you never write anything at all.
Exactly. The resolution. It sounds simple, but it's hard. Don't worry about doing it well, just do it. Focus on showing up. Focus on progress, not perfection. Volume over victory initially. Just get the reps in.
Makes sense. What about limited emotional processing skills?
This is huge. If you avoid uncomfortable feelings, anger, sadness, fear, maybe even overwhelming joy, you essentially stunt your emotional range.
And then you start avoiding situations that might trigger those feelings.
Right. Which means you avoid risks, challenges, opportunities for growth. Basically, anything that could change your life for the better, but might involve feeling something difficult along the way. You trap yourself in a narrow emotional band.
Okay, and justification, making excuses.
We all do it, but Wiest is blunt. Life is measured by outcomes. If you intended to do something but didn't, the reason you give is simply what you prioritized. Instead, maybe comfort, maybe fear, maybe distraction.
So the fixes.
Measure your outcomes honestly, and commit to doing at least one productive thing each day, no matter how small. Build momentum based on action, not intention.
What about judging others? How does gossiping or being critical sabotage us?
It sets up internal rules. If you constantly judge wealthy people as greedy or unethical, you create an internal conflict if you start becoming successful yourself. You can't be good in your own eyes, and also successful if you've defined success as inherently bad.
You sabotage your own rise to stay consistent with your judgments.
Exactly. The solution she offers is powerful. Practice non-judgment through non-assumption. Recognize you rarely have the full story about someone else. Cultivate compassion. And actively congratulate others on their success. It rewires your brain to see success as attainable and positive for you too.
That's interesting. And related to that is downplaying success or feeling guilty about it.
Yeah, we do this often out of fear of making others uncomfortable, fear of peaking and falling, or just feeling undeserving, maybe due to past struggles.
Like imposter syndrome cranked up?
Kind of. Wiest says acknowledging your hard work isn't arrogant, it's honest. Thank you, I worked very hard. Simple. And reframe progress, it's usually gradual improvement, not a peak followed by a crash. As for guilt, especially around money, remember, it's a tool. Success can allow you to have a greater positive impact.
Okay, two more common ones. Unhealthy habits and just being chronically busy.
These often go hand in hand as avoidance tactics. Poor eating, procrastination, lack of exercise. They often stem from some underlying inner tension or frustration you're not dealing with. The fix is gradual change. Setting small, achievable goals for healthier routines make it easy to succeed.
And the busyness.
It can be a shield, a way to feel important or avoid deeper, more meaningful, and sometimes scary work. You need to ruthlessly prioritize, simplify, and get comfortable with not being constantly on. Ask yourself, is this busyness productive or is it a distraction?
And finally, really direct one. Spending time with the wrong people.
This one's crucial. Your environment, the company you keep, profoundly shapes you. If you're consistently around people who drain you, criticize you, or make you feel small, that's active self-sabotage.
So the solution is pretty clear.
Build a supportive circle. Gradually phase out the draining relationships. Surround yourself with people who energize and inspire you. It's non-negotiable for growth.
Wow, okay. That's a lot of ways self-sabotage can manifest.
Sure.
How do you even know if you're in one of these cycles? Are there clear signs?
Yes, she lists several really specific indicators, like being much more aware of what you don't want than what you do want. That's a big one.
Focusing on the negative.
Right, or spending energy trying to impress people who clearly don't like or respect you instead of nurturing relationships with people who do.
That feels like a waste of energy.
Totally. Also, putting your head in the sand, basically. Denial.
Yeah.
Avoiding basic, uncomfortable facts about your health, your finances, your relationships. Pretending things are okay when they're clearly not.
Caring more about looking okay than being okay. The external perception versus the internal reality.
That's a huge one in the age of social media, isn't it? Other signs. Being genuinely more afraid of your own feelings than of external threats. Blindly chasing goals without checking if they actually align with your values or bring fulfillment.
Giving more weight to your doubts than your potential. Letting that inner critic run the show.
Yes. And trying to care about everything, spreading your willpower too thin. And a really poignant one, not realizing how far you've actually come. Forgetting the challenges you've already overcome.
That failure to acknowledge progress keeps you stuck.
It does. And remember, these behaviors, even the self-defeating thoughts, like being mean to yourself first to somehow soften the blow of external judgment, are usually misguided attempts at protection.
Protecting yourself from pain by inflicting it first. That's twisted logic.
It is. But it makes sense from a place of deep fear. This is why that deep psychological excavation is necessary. Because when you do stop the sabotaging behavior, Wiest warns, repressed emotions will surface.
You might feel worse before you feel better.
Exactly. But those feelings, anger, sadness, guilt, they aren't random noise, they're clues. They often point directly to the root cause of the pattern you're trying to break.
And she gives guidance on handling those feelings when they come up, right? Like anger isn't bad.
No. Anger shows you your limits, your priorities. It signals what needs to change. It can fuel massive positive shifts if channeled correctly. Sadness is a healthy response to loss. Allowing yourself to grieve is strength.
Guilt often stems from childhood, she says, and usually affects those who aren't actually guilty of terrible things. It prompts self-reflection.
Right. Embarrassment points to behavior misaligned with your values. Resentment is often projected regret about your own choices or expectations. Regret itself, like jealousy, isn't just negative. It's a powerful motivator, showing you what you deeply value and need to create moving forward.
And that chronic fear loop, constantly replaying worst-case scenarios.
That's that subconscious defense mechanism again. Caring deeply, terrified of loss, so you channel energy into worrying, thinking it equals control or safety.
But it's a false promise. It drains you and can even attract what you fear.
Precisely. The way through it, she insists, isn't fighting the fear, but radical acceptance. If that happens, it happens. That frees up energy to focus on what you can control right now. Trust the peaceful feeling, she says, not the fear hallucination.
And a key part of this is disconnecting action from feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not waiting till you feel like changing.
Monumental point. We wait to feel motivated, feel ready, but feelings often reinforce familiarity, even negative familiarity. True mastery involves taking the aligned action even when you don't feel like it. That's how you break the cycle.
Okay, this feels like a good transition point. We've unmasked self-sabotage, looked at its roots and manifestations. Now let's get into navigating the inner landscape instinct, emotion, thought patterns, Chapter 3 territory.
Right, and this starts with questioning that common advice. Trust your gut.
Which seems like good advice.
It can be, but with caveats. Wiest acknowledges the gut, the second brain, stores a lot of subconscious information. Your initial present moment instinct can be very accurate, drawing on that data before your conscious mind overthinks it.
But the key word there is present.
Exactly. She's adamant. Your gut is not psychic. If you have an instinct about a future event, that's projection. That's likely fear masquerading as intuition.
How do you tell the difference?
Intuition, she says, is usually subtle, calm, and informs your immediate actions based on present data. Fear is often loud, panicky, and spins narratives about the future. We get into trouble when we treat every anxious feeling about the future as a psychic warning.
So feelings aren't necessarily reliable guides for big decisions.
No, she states it clearly. Feelings do not inform you of the right decision to make. Right decisions create the right feelings. Your mind is for guidance, she argues. You cultivate peace and joy through consistent, right action, not by waiting for the feeling to arrive first.
That flips the usual script. Act your way into feeling better. Don't wait to feel better before acting.
Precisely. And this leads directly into emotional intelligence, understanding, interpreting, responding healthily to your emotions. A lack of this, she says, is the absolute root of self-sabotage.
If you don't understand your inner world, how can you navigate it?
You can't. You're lost. And here's a kicker that explains so much resistance. Your brain is designed to resist what you really want.
Wait, what? Why?
Because your brain prioritizes comfort and familiarity over potentially disruptive growth or happiness. It wants the status quo. This is why big, positive life changes, getting married, dream job, major goal achieved, can paradoxically trigger adjustment shock or even depression.
Because it's unfamiliar territory, even if it's good territory.
Exactly. It forces you out of survival mode, maybe, and into deeper questions. Now what? What's my purpose beyond just getting here? Am I living meaningfully? Success brings new challenges, new responsibilities. It demands growth, which the comfort-seeking brain initially resists. Change is stress, even good change.
Fascinating. So if the brain resists big leaps, how does change happen?
Through microshifts. This is so important. We romanticize the Big Bang breakthrough moment, but Wiest, echoing others like Kuhn and Holliday, says breakthroughs are just tipping points. They're the result of hours, days, and years of the same mundane, monotonous work.
The slow accumulation of small changes.
Yes. Epiphanies are great, but they don't stick without restructuring habits. Microshifts are those tiny, nearly undetectable decisions every hour of every day. 10 minutes of exercise instead of 0. 1 page of reading, 30 seconds of meditation.
Things that don't trigger the brain's alarm bells.
Exactly. They compound over time, slowly raising your baseline, shifting your comfort zone without that jarring upper limit reaction. It's about consistency over intensity.
Recognizing that the familiar, even if toxic, feels safe to the brain. We resist what we want most because it demands we leave that familiar safety.
Right. Getting what you want forces you out of survival mode and into living more fully, which is its own kind of challenge.
And speaking of brain patterns, she talks about cognitive distortions, like psychic thinking.
Yeah, this isn't about actual psychic powers. It's assuming you know what others are thinking. They must hate me. Predicting the worst. This interview will be a disaster. Believing in some perfect missed life you should have had.
It detaches you from reality, fuels anxiety.
Totally. It replaces logic with biased, often incorrect emotions. She also mentions other logical lapses, common thinking errors.
Like what?
Hasty generalizations assuming something based on one experience. Post hoc ergo propter hoc assuming causation just because B happened after A, like your Lucky Socks example. False dichotomies thinking there are only 2 options when there are many. These traps keep us stuck in fear.
And what about just excessive worrying, that constant churning?
Again, she reframes it. It's not a malfunction. It's often that subconscious defense. I care so much, I'm terrified of losing this, so I'll worry constantly to try and control it or prepare.
But it doesn't work, it just drains you.
Exactly. It's a false promise of safety. It paralyzes you. The only way through chronic fear, she says, isn't to fight it or rationalize it away. It's acceptance.
Acceptance of the worst case.
Okay.
If that happens, it happens.
That radical acceptance, it sounds passive, but it's incredibly active because it frees up all the energy you were wasting on worry. Now you can focus that energy on building what you can control in the present. Trust the peace, she says, not the panic.
Powerful. Okay, so we've tackled the inner landscape. Now, how do we deal with the baggage? Chapter 5. Releasing the past and building a new foundation.
This chapter starts with a fundamental truth. We are meant to change. Evolution is our natural state. Resisting that, clinging to the past, carrying unresolved emotions forward, that's a major source of suffering.
But letting go is hard. We hear it all the time. Just let it go. But how?
And Wiest says directly, you cannot force yourself to let go. Trying harder often makes you cling tighter. It's the white elephant problem. Try not to think of it, and it's all you see.
So if you can't force it, what do?
You focus on building something new. Build a new life so immersive and engaging and exciting. You slowly, over time, forget about the past. Don't fight the old. Create the compelling new.
Focus your energy forward on construction, not demolition.
Exactly. If you feel you just can't let go of something right now, okay. Don't beat yourself up. Instead, take one small step today towards building the new life, and another tomorrow. Time and focus on the future will eventually provide perspective, and you might even see that the thing you couldn't let go of was actually what was holding you back.
Lots of relief, actually. Less pressure. This connects to her points on healing trauma, too, which she says isn't just in the head.
Crucial point. Trauma is not in your head, it is in your body. It's not just a bad memory, it's a physiological state, a sustained fight-or-flight response that gets locked in. It affects memory, emotional regulation, everything. The body literally hardens itself to protect.
Like an internal cast.
Good analogy. But that cast, meant to protect, can eventually impede movement and full healing. So the recovery process she outlines is twofold.
Okay, what are the steps?
First, identify the cause by noticing physical tension or tightness. Where does your body feel constricted? That's often where the trauma is held. Healing involves slowly softening the pieces of us that are trying to protect us.
Gently coaxing the body out of that defensive posture.
Right. And second, you must reinstate a sense of safety in the specific area where the trauma occurred. If it was relational trauma, build safe, healthy relationships now. Financial trauma, work towards stability now. Job loss trauma, have a backup plan now. Bullying, find supportive friends now. You heal the connection by recreating safety where it was broken.
That's very concrete. And her view on meditation challenges some common ideas too, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
not just about achieving calmness.
Right. She pushes back on using meditation solely to feel calm. The true purpose, she argues, is to just feel. To allow all emotions and thoughts, the anger, the fear, the sadness, the mental chatter to arise and pass without reacting.
Sitting with it all, without judgment or engagement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That non-response is where the power lies. You witness it without getting swept away. You let the ripples settle naturally.
So emotional health isn't being happy all the time.
Definitely not. That's unrealistic. It's about allowing the full spectrum of human emotion to flow through you without getting stuck or shutting down. Healing isn't about returning to some naive, unbroken state. It's about gutting yourself and becoming someone entirely new.
Facing the darkness, refusing mediocrity.
Yes. And emerging more resilient, more self-sufficient, more empowered. It's that stark, maybe terrifying, but ultimately liberating realization. Nothing will save you, and so you must begin the work of saving yourself.
And through that process, you become stronger, more grounded, more empathetic, but not more afraid.
Crucially, not more afraid, because you learn that fear is not going to protect you. Action is.
Okay, that's a lot about healing the past. How do we actively build the future? Chapter 6, building a new future. Purpose and principles.
Exactly. Now the focus shifts fully forward. It's not just about clearing debris. It's about intentional construction.
And she introduces future self-work. How does that work?
It's a powerful visualization technique, like inner child work, but focused forward. It helps you reverse engineer your goals by making your desired future feel real now. Step 1 is key. Face the fear first.
What does that mean?
When you first try to visualize your highest potential self, scary images might pop up, fears of failure, loss, judgment. She says, acknowledge those. Recognize them as current fears projected onto the future, not prophecies. Let them pass.
Okay, so clear the fear static first. Then what?
Then notice how your future self looks and feels. How do they carry themselves? What are they wearing? How do they behave? What emotions radiate from them? These details are clues, keys to your own becoming, showing you the specific shifts needed in your habits and mindset.
And the final step.
Imagine that future self handing you the keys to aspects of your desired life. Maybe keys to a new car, a symbolic representation of a new job, a wedding band. This makes the possibility feel tangible, certain. It builds confidence and calm.
So you're pulling the future towards you, in
Yeah.
a sense.
Exactly. And from that envisioned self, you ask the daily question, what would my most powerful self do today? You act as the CEO of your own life.
And what characterizes that powerful self?
Importantly, it's not about pretending to be perfect. Powerful people are aware of their weaknesses and either work on them, outsource, or set boundaries. They're not delusional. And critically, they are willing to be disliked.
Ooh, that's a tough one for many.
It is. But they understand that pursuing anything meaningful will inevitably attract judgment or resistance from someone. They act anyway, not out of malice, but because their mission is more important than universal approval.
Other foundational practices she mentions.
Simplifying life, showing results rather than just talking, prioritizing health, learning from everything, successes and failures, embracing vulnerability strategically, and meticulously designing daily routines. It's about internal validation.
This leads into the importance of principles. Why are principles more crucial than just inspiration?
Because inspiration is fleeting. Positive thinking alone doesn't build anything. Wiest argues that if you feel lost or fragile despite outward success, it's likely a lack of core principles guiding your actions. Problems only make you stronger if you learn and adapt through principles.
She gives examples like high earners deep in debt or people unhappy in their dream job.
Right, because external achievements without internal grounding principles are unstable. A principle is a fundamental truth, like gravity, as Stephen Covey said. It works whether you believe it or not. Values can be subjective. Principles are more like natural laws of cause and effect.
Like financial principles consistently save X%, always pay down high-interest debt first.
Exactly. Or the law of the harvest, small, consistent actions compound massively over time. That $10 saved daily example turning into over $800 K. That's the power of a principle applied consistently.
So inspiration gets you excited, but principles get you there.
Precisely. Principles require discipline. They're often boring, not immediately gratifying. That's why inspiration without principles leads to disappointment. You need both the vision and the daily grind guided by truth.
So you need to identify your own core principles based on what you genuinely value.
Yes. If relationships are paramount, your principle is prioritizing quality time. If freedom is key, consistent saving becomes a principle. Your life is built from the inside out, based on these foundational truths you live by.
And finally, this chapter tackles finding your true purpose. This feels huge, often overwhelming for people.
It does, and she challenges the vague, follow your heart advice. Her take is more direct. When you start thinking that you don't know what to do with your life, what you really mean is that you don't yet know who you are.
Purpose comes from self-knowledge first.
Yes, and then finding the intersection, the point at which your skills, interests, and the market intersect. Your unique life experiences, even the painful ones, aren't random. They form a blueprint pointing towards your contribution.
What questions does she suggest asking to uncover this?
Deep ones. What and who is worth suffering for? What truly matters? What comes most naturally to you, your innate gifts? What would your ideal daily routine look like? The practical reality. What do you want your legacy to be? Long-term impact.
And she suggests purpose is often found not in comfort, but in adversity.
Often, yes. When people are lost, depleted, exhausted with their backs against the wall, it's in figuring out how to respond to profound challenge that true purpose often crystallizes. It clarifies what you stand for and how you can serve, like rising from the ashes.
A powerful, albeit challenging path to purpose. Okay, final stretch. Chapter 7. From Self-Sabotage to Self-Mastery, the Path of Lasting Change.
This chapter feels like the culmination. The transformation isn't some magical event, she stresses. It's the natural outcome of understanding you are the one holding yourself back, which means you absolutely have the power to move forward.
And a key part of this mastery is how we relate to our emotions.
Right.
Controlling versus suppressing.
Big difference. Drawing on Buddhist thought, she talks about letting go through non-attachment, allowing thoughts and feelings to arise and pass without reacting, without clinging or resisting.
Like steadying the leg, letting the ripples settle on their own.
Exactly. Suppression is pushing them down, which just builds pressure. Non-attachment is observing them without getting entangled. That's where you regain your power, recognizing you are the awareness behind the thoughts and feelings, not the thoughts and feelings themselves.
And again, emotional health isn't perpetual happiness.
No. It's the ability to experience the full range without getting stuck. Then she offers practical ways to overcome inner obstacles on this path to mastery. First, detaching from worrying.
We've touched on this, but it's core to mastery. That false belief that worrying equals control.
Right. It's an energy drain based on illusion. Remember, the peaceful feeling is the truth. Release the need to control the uncontrollable through worry.
And mental strength, it's not innate, it's a practice.
Absolutely. It's built. Mentally strong people get a plan, they think long-term, they humble themselves, realizing it's not always about them, letting go of the need for constant validation or fear of judgment.
They stop trying to be psychic, challenging those negative predictions, and focusing energy on present action. And they take radical responsibility for outcomes.
Yes, understanding their choices shape their reality. This isn't blame, it's empowerment. Mental strength is also about responsiveness, not reactiveness. Feeling emotions appropriately, then choosing a wise response.
They learn from the past, but don't live there. Forget what happened. Focus on making it right.
Exactly. Apply the lessons now. They also honor their discomfort as a signal for growth, a sign they're capable of more.
They strive to arrive into the present, knowing anxiety lives in the future, depression in the past. Peace is now.
They actively nurture positive relationships, understanding their impact on well-being. They commit to learning something new constantly, staying curious and open.
They learn to see challenging times as opportunities, Knowing growth happens at the edges. They become acutely aware of what they give their energy to.
That wolf you feed idea. Negative thoughts, if fed, grow stronger and shape your reality. And finally, something often missed. They actively schedule time to do nothing and play.
Real rest. Not just collapsing, but intentional downtime and joy.
Yes. Happiness becomes an active choice, found in simplicity and presence, not just striving. Refusing to fill every single moment.
It all leads back to that core idea, doesn't it? As Wiest concludes, looking back, you'll see the mountains were gifts.
Gifts, pivot points, awakenings, not obstacles, but opportunities that revealed your strength.
And self-mastery begins with that radical and complete responsibility for your life. It's not what happens, but how you respond.
That's the fundamental shift. That's where the power lies.
Okay, let's try to synthesize this incredible journey. A comprehensive summary of the actionable insights. First, self-sabotage is protective, not punitive, driven by unconscious needs and old beliefs.
Right. And understanding your upper limit for happiness and identifying those negative associations, especially around things like money or success, is step one to dismantling the patterns.
Lasting change comes not from waiting for a lightning bolt, but from those consistent tiny microshifts and living by clear, fundamental principles day in, day out.
Emotional intelligence is key, learning to differentiate true gut instinct, present, from fear, future, and making choices based on wisdom, not just fleeting feelings.
Healing trauma is embodied work, addressing it physically, softening the protective layers, and actively reinstating safety in the present. It's not about going back, but becoming more resilient because of what you faced.
And proactively building your future involves that future self-work, acting as the CEO of your life, cultivating awareness, humility, and crucially, the willingness to act even if it means facing disapproval.
It's shifting from focusing on making it externally to being internally, living by principles, finding purpose within, taking that radical responsibility.
Ultimately, the book suggests healing is the purpose, realizing you must save yourself. And in doing so, becoming stronger, more grounded, more empathetic, more mindful, trading fear for action.
Which leaves us and you with this final provocative thought to ponder. What mountain are you facing right now? What discomfort is it bringing up? And what truth might that discomfort be trying to reveal about the powerful, unmastered self waiting within you?
Are you willing to lean into that discomfort, identify those subconscious commitments holding you back, and start making those microshifts?
The mountain isn't waiting for you to be perfect. It's just waiting for you to begin the climb.